Hi, I'm Greg, Soul Searching Gaijin. Today's video is going to be my process of building a live set. My last show was November 1st and I had a great show. It was at a small little bar and I did, there was a bunch of DJs. I was the only live performer that night. And so since there was a lot of DJs, I did like a kind of, I don't know, not a DJ set, but like a house music set, 120 BPM. And it went over really well. I had such a good time. People were dancing, it was crazy. And this next show that I'm working on, this music I'm working on next, set I should say, is for the same venue sometime early next year. And I just kind of want to get it ahead of the game. And I've been working on it for a little bit now, and I just think it would be beneficial to kind of show you how I go about it. There's a kind of a process that over this past year I've kind of figured out works for me, and a methodology, and that's what we're going to be going over today. I'm going to be playing you some music, kind of showing you how it's all created, the thought process, and how that translates into a set. Basically, I hope you find some valuable information in this. I may be a little bit all over the place, but I'll try to keep it to the point as much as possible. So let's flip over to this view. And essentially, my live rig here, I start the sets by building, just coming up with an idea at first, coming up with a pattern, and let's go over here and we'll just hit play. This is pretty much the full-blown pattern with everything playing. I'll add a couple more elements. I have a little piano coming over here on my iPad. That's coming up here, pure piano. And just a variation of that using the same sounds. So essentially, that's how I start out with first. I'll build up a full-blown pattern on, I try to start with a new bank over here on the Digitact. Essentially, I have AUM being my master clock, and that's triggering everything is slave to that over here. So my Digitact is actually sending program changes to my Digitone. So when I change a pattern over here on the Digitact, it changes once I hit play. Now it's acting funky. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now it did what it was supposed to do. So now these are both running in sync, and you can see I have 16 patterns here. I don't have all these loaded up because essentially what I did was, like I said, I come up with my full idea. You can see right now I have multiple things muted. That's because, and also over here, I only have a few things playing. My pianos aren't in, a couple other things aren't playing. I can bring them in, can bring them out. But what I do is once I get my initial big blown out pattern, which starts out on pattern 1, I will, once I'm comfortable with that and I feel like I have all the elements that I need for the track, basically. It's just a matter of taking things away and bringing things in. I'll copy that pattern and paste it across multiple patterns. So these first 4 patterns are all variations off of the main pattern. And my ideology with that is, on pattern 1, I'll start with a lot of things muted. This is how I'm going to start the set, and then I can progress by staying in one pattern and like bringing in certain elements, playing with some effects, doing whatever I want to do, and then I'll jump to another pattern, which kind of builds it up a little bit more. And so this just kind of helps me out because I'm also over here, I'm playing on top with the Terra. So by separating into multiple patterns, it just kind of makes it a little bit easier for me to go from when I get lost, because there's a lot of stuff that kind of comes up when you're playing, and a lot of things to kind of pay attention to. Sometimes I'll forget where things are. Since I'm dealing with multiple patterns in a set, I try to set up everything on the same tracks for the whole set. But sometimes I'll forget where some of my melodic things are, things that change a lot, like the kick, snare, and hi-hats are always here on 1, 2, 3, and 4, some type of percussion on 4. And then normally over here on 8, I have a reverse cymbal, which I'll talk about that in a second, just for transitions. And then I do, sometimes I'll do like extra drums over here on 9, 10, 11, and 12, and then normally like 13, 14, 15, 16, or any sampled elements, or sometimes I may even have some of these tracks be assigned to MIDI tracks and trigger some stuff on AUM. And over here on the Digitact, or Digitone, I normally have my basses somewhere up like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe some arpeggiated things going here on like 9. In this scenario specifically, I have a little melody going here, a little bass thing here on 9, and then what else? On 11 and 12, I just have some, if I muted this down, this is just these two tracks, 11 and 12, one little swell thing, one little like kind of glitchy thing going on. So anyway, by jumping through tracks, after I've copied and pasted the same elements on multiple tracks, I will go in and I'll carve out different things. Like you can see, the energy comes up a little bit. I have everything unmuted at this point on the Digitone, and I'm now on pattern 3. And then, you know, in the meantime, while this is happening, it allows me to kind of play a little bit over top, and then I can do some crazy things. I can play with my delays. It just allows me to kind of play within a pattern a bit, and when I feel like I've hit my limit, or I get a little bit lost, or I know that I want to kind of break things down to go to the next pattern, that's always my last pattern in the sequence of groupings for one track. So now I drop back down, and this will allow me to kind of like just kind of ease my way out of this track into the next track. And one thing I did for transitions, like I was saying, I'd get back to on track 8, but I don't have it turned on here. I'm going to turn it on. Essentially, when there you go. So I have a cymbal swell programmed on track 8 that normally, except for that last pattern, because I'm not 100% finished with this yet, what I have going in here is, if you look, let's go to track 8 and let's go to record. Where are we at? The cymbal swell should start, okay, it starts here on measure 7, and it goes shh and crescendos right before the next pattern comes. I have this programmed, and when I hold this down and I go to source or trig page, my conditions, I have it set to last, to only play the last time through the pattern. So what this does is, if I come out of here and I just play this pattern, you can see as we progress to measure 7, we're on 5 now, 6, 7. That's when the cymbal should have started, but it's not, because I have it set to only play when I flip to another pattern. Now I've selected pattern 6, so you should hear it come in right here. And there you go. And all that's doing is just kind of helping me create a transition that I don't have to do with effects or something, because there's a lot going on and a lot to manage, and I try to take as much of the pressure off to have things kind of happen naturally. So I know, like, I can play, okay, this is a different sound, or at least a different key. So I can play around a little bit, and then if I want to do some things like I want to bring in some more elements and then kind of play with some stuff here. Maybe do a little filter out the highs. Now, say I'm going to switch back to a whole nother thing. It's kind of tricky if I want to sit down and I got to go like, I mean, that's fine if I'm just doing a couple things at once, but if I want to unmute multiple things as well as do a little filter sweep or something like that, it makes it much easier if I can just literally select a pattern. And then there's big changes happening. Now I can slowly bring back in my filter. It just takes the pressure off of having to create such big variations, or such big transitions, I should say. So let's see what happens if I go to 8, if I have that cymbal swell also programmed in there as well. I pretty much am doing this for all my patterns. And once I get the whole set done, what I'll do is probably go through and maybe, yep, see if they're the same. So what I'll probably do is go through and change out that sound of the swell. Maybe I'll just tune up or down the cymbal swell, or I'll put like a different sound in there. So just to kind of create variation. But since the little swells for transitions don't happen that often, I'm okay if it's just one sound for the moment. But the way I start, once again, is like I said, I start with one pattern that I build up as much as I can. I copy that pattern and I paste it across multiple patterns. And then I'll go into any one individual pattern, and you can see I have some things muted, some things unmuted. And I only do this once I feel like I have a very nice cohesive mix to the whole idea. All my drum levels, I really don't mess around with drum levels, or not the like levels of bass and stuff like that. I kind of keep the core elements of the song all on the same level. And then in any individual section, I may take like a lead sound and I may tune that up a little bit. I may put a little bit different effect on it. I may have different filtering on there just to kind of give it a little bit of variation from one pattern to the next. But for the most part, I keep the core stable. So if I go in, say for instance on pattern 3, and I start messing with my EQ on my kick, now that's going to change my cohesiveness up to all the other patterns that I've created for that individual track when I flip through. So it's important to me to, like I said, have the first pattern be as complete, finished, and mixed as possible before I break them out into multiple patterns and start creating variations. Then after I get my first group of patterns, my first track, I'll say, I copy that and I paste that onto an empty pattern, which at the moment, or before the next track started, would have been pattern 5. And so you can see I have, if I go back to pattern 1, I have the same kicks, just EQ'd a little bit differently. And I essentially have the same instruments on the same tracks over here. Some type of hi-hat, some type of percussion, some type of snare over there. And what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll change the tuning of those. I'll change the attack and decay of those. Sometimes I'll change the sound out completely. I'll change the filtering just to give it variation. So since this whole set is 123 BPM, for ease of working with AUM, which is my master clock, and I'm not using a sequencer in here. Everything is sequenced coming from these two machines. There's no way of me changing the tempo other than programming something here at a button to flip tempos. So I'm keeping the whole set at 123 BPM just for consistency and flow from one track to the next. I could, like I said, program something and jump, have tempo changes on certain buttons here and do that in between. When I've tried to do that, you'll hear like a jump in the effects on the Digitakt and Digitem. The effects get a little bit weird and it kind of is a little distracting. So for me, since my sets are only like a half hour, I like to keep everything at the same tempo just because of the way this particular workflow is. If I was working as these is my master clock, which there is a way to do that with Ableton Link, but I'm not using Ableton and I don't have that set up here, so I cannot necessarily do that. This has to be my master clock. If these were my master clock, I would probably be doing different tempos, but also the same problem I'm going to have when I jump from one to the next, where the effects are going to morph a little bit. Either way, I'm doing it this way and I'm fine with it. So, as I said, we've gone from 2 patterns now, and then I have a third over here. Let's go to pattern 8. Okay, so on pattern 8, what do I have going on here? Okay, these are some of the muted elements, depending on. Let's just make our way to pattern 8 through pattern 5. So this is the second track, and it starts out like this. Now it'll start out like, here we go. Once again, this is how it's going to start, my second track. I'm just going to play through each pattern one time so you can kind of hear how I'm progressing. Like I said, in between, I can play I can play with effects. Now we're into the kind of the meat of the track a little bit. I'm going to switch to another pattern, and I won't switch this quick when I'm playing live. I'm going to stay on a pattern and milk it and play around, but like I said, it gives me a nice place to go and something that I know, like, okay, now here's a bit of a different feel. And in this, I can unmute some little things a little bit and not reveal the entire part. This is how I'm going to morph around. I'm just kind of getting lost in what I'm doing. So now we're going to transition to the last pattern in this track, which is going to kind of bring me down and set me up for my next one. Okay, so a lot of stuff drops out, which is kind of nice. I do have some percussion going that I did over here on the Hansonic. I recorded that in Loopy Pro up here, and I can mute that, I can unmute that. I have a delay on that track. I can filter my delay. I can mute the track and let the delay trail go out. Bring it back down. Open up my filter again. And I'm just going to throw this piano in because I find that going from this to this next pattern I created, which is pattern track 3, but it starts on pattern 9. It's a whole different idea, and it's in major, not minor, but it's kind of riffing on the piano. And I like how this kind of goes from a little bit more higher energy, and it keeps the energy up. So I did want to start this pattern slow, and also I have yet to, whoa. Oh, my signal just, something weird just happened there. Okay, that's happened before. So let me just, files, sessions, templates. Let me go up. I'm going to basically reload this because something weird. It's been happening a couple times. I have to kind of figure out what's going on there. God, I hope that doesn't happen when I play live. I must have something kind of configured weird, which is confusing as shit. So essentially, when I switch to pattern 9 over here, you can hear it's kind of like full-blown everything's playing, right? That's because I have yet to commit to this track. There's still some other elements I want to make in here so I can create variations. And then what I will do is, like I said, I will copy that onto these other patterns. Right now, if you listen to pattern 9 or 10, you're just hearing the drums, which I've copied. I think these drums actually came from the first pattern. But there's nothing else programmed. Same thing, nothing else programmed on the Digitakt 2. If I go to pattern 11, same thing. I go to pattern 13, same thing. So this is just, they're like placeholders essentially. I just copied and pasted all of these just so when I actually do a new track, I have the same sounds as some other stuff in here to kind of give it cohesiveness, and then I can, like I said, tweak to make things a little bit different and change sounds as needed, but I'm trying to keep things a bit cohesive. So once again, we're on pattern 9. Okay, and I can bring in percussion if I want. And something I did different on this was, and the reason I did that, okay, so I programmed piano on 12 and 13 on the Digitakt as opposed to the Digitone. The way I was using the Digitone, well, first, the reason I did this is because over here, if I go to pattern 12, I have a Arturia key step down here, which you may or may not be able to see. And I have that plugged into the Digitakt, so I can actually record like me playing live. And on the Digitone, let me see if I'm on the, well, if I go to pattern 8, go to track 16, I'm in chord mode over here. So essentially, this Arturia is not triggering stuff here, it's triggering stuff on the Digitakt. So my pianos that are coming off of the Digitone are actually chords that I've used in chord mode. I've gone through and created a bunch of different chords. That allows me to do things like so I can actually go in if I feel so inspired and perform that stuff live while the track's going. But what I've actually done is I've programmed those in. as a pattern. So we go to track A. You can see that there are programs in here. Yeah. So that's why, because essentially I'm using this in chord mode, and over here I'm actually playing some of those melodies live, so I can get a little more dynamics. There's a way to get dynamics in chord mode too, but it's a little more editing, and maybe I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to that, but I just kind of like the vibe with the nice, powerful, full volume chords. And then the vibe of this pattern over here. That's a leftover. Now we should be. Now we switched over to patterns. Okay, so. And this is consisting of two different sounds. I have two different parts. It's a high part with a piano. And you can hear just individual notes with a little bit of velocity programmed in. And then the other part. And both of them can play really nicely over top of one another. So that's how I'm doing that. So essentially, that's how I'm coming up with my patterns. Now at this point, I will flesh out this, copy and paste them onto a few other tracks, and then make some variations, and then move on to pattern 13 and start a whole new idea. And I really am aiming for 5 tracks per half-hour set, which gives me about 6 minutes per track. And what I'll probably eventually do is, since there's only 16, and right now I'm grouping them in groups of 4, I'll probably, once I get this all done, I'll go in and I'll consolidate. Instead of 4 patterns per track, I'll make it 3. I'll just delete the last one, consolidate 2 and 3 into 1, figure out how to make my variations within that main body of the track, and start the patterns as intro, main body, where I do all my playing, muting, unmuting, creating variations, and then 3 being my outro into the next track. And then that would bring me to 4, which is just repeat. That's the intro of the second track. 5 would be the full body. 3 would be my outro, or kind of breakdown to get into the next one. And so that way, if I do 3 patterns per track, gets me up to pattern 15, which is 5 tracks, each with 3 patterns. And then if I wanted to do something different or whatever, I could add. You get my point, right? So as I'm playing through this, aside from being able to mute and unmute different things per pattern, which, as I said, you can kind of see here, certain things are, and that's because as I flip through the patterns, you can see things are different, muted and unmuted. There's other things that I have set up in order to give me variations. And so if we hit play, over here on my Nano control, I have the first 3 faders. First 3 faders are essentially set up to control master effects on Digitakt is fader 1, and that's a delay. And if I come over here, play view, you'll see that's affecting transit. Then on that same channel on my Digitakt, if you can see over here, I have a low pass, so I can filter out the highs, and that's set to a knob. I have a high pass, And then by pushing this button on the Fader Fox, that brings up this plugin that I have, which is called Glitch Core. And I have that set up so I can kind of break things down into like kind of like a halftime little glitchier type feel. So I can do combinations where I can go then high pass everything. Bring everything back. So that gives me that over here. And then on my Digitone, I have, let's hide this. Let's go to Digitone. Same thing. I have an instance of Transit, which allows me, that's Master Effects on my Digitone, sorry. And then on my Master Fader in AUM, I have set up on this fader in the Fader Fox. It's kind of like a flanger effect. It's nice, and that affects the everything, the entire song, which is kind of nice. So I can do that. I can throw my delay on here. I can throw craziness on here. So it kind of gives me lots of variations. And then also I have it set up so I can throw my delay on this guy and then mute the whole track and just let the delay trail fade out. Bring things back in. And then, as I said before, I have an instance of Loopy Pro where I have 3 percussion patterns, which I made over on the Hansonic. They're playing. And same type thing. I have a high pass. I have a low pass filter on that. And I have a delay. And I also have a mute. So all of those things allow me some variations. And then over here on this guy, the Terra, I have a tremolo effect, which just allows me a little variation. So with all of those, muting and unmuting, playing with the effects that I have here mapped, it just gives me a lot of possibilities. That's one main reason why I am doing multiple patterns per track and not just sticking with one, because at any given moment I can kind of get lost. And to ground myself, it's just nice to be able to change patterns and know that something cohesive that makes sense, that all fits together, is going to pop in. So I can kind of go crazy, get a little bit lost, make things really huge, and get lost and not know where to go. So then I'll just jump back to maybe my intro or outro version of that track, and everything drops down in a really nice, tight way, which kind of grounds me a little bit, and then I can kind of get my bearing of where I'm at. Because all this stuff, I don't memorize my moves. I do everything live by feel. And that's kind of the fun part, because you're kind of just trusting your instincts, and that's where you're like jamming a little bit, which is really nice. So I hope that made sense and was cohesive and wasn't way too long. Once I get the whole set done, I will be doing a practice performance, basically a videotape performance in the studio before I go out and play this live. I haven't had a ton of luck recording my live sets. This last one, which was, like I said, was the best show that I ever had. I had so much fun. I didn't even attempt to record it. I didn't record the audio, no video. It was a small venue, and I knew a bunch of the people there. There was probably about maybe like 20 some people there. Small little venue, and there was really no pressure. And I kind of went into it with, yeah, this is no pressure. I'm just going to have fun. And it was very intimate. People were like literally standing like right here, right in front of me, trying to speak to me in Japanese while I was trying to perform. And I was just like, oh, this is great. I don't understand a fucking thing you're saying. A little bit. I'm trying to talk to you, but oh my God, please stop because I'm going to fuck up. I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. And in that sense, it kind of took the pressure off because these people were, they were having fun, they were dancing, they were excited, they wanted to talk to me, they wanted to know what I was doing, all in the middle of me trying to do it. And it kind of took my focus off just enough that I didn't stress out about every little move, and I just really relaxed and just like kind of went on intuition from, luckily I had been practicing quite a bit because I try to do that before a show so I don't make a fool of myself. And it was really nice to see people engaged and people moving, and hence that's why I'm doing another like kind of housey dance set. This one's at 123 beats per minute, a little bit faster. The other one was 120 beats per minute, and different ideas. Though I tend to reuse a lot of the same sounds. I really love piano. You'll hear piano on most of the stuff I do, and this guy is just fun because it just gives me, adds an element of live performance that's not muting, unmuting, and playing with effects. And also, there's a lot that can go right or can go wrong with this, depending on what type of vibe I'm in or what type of flow I can achieve. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I hope you got something out of this and it wasn't too much. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, take care.